speaking of tomorrow's world, tomorrow is already here today. As you have seen, the turbulent times we have lived in have changed the way we live and the way we work forever. Now, one of the things common to all of us, perhaps since the beginning of human race, is the aspect of rejection. Rejection is as old as mankind itself. If you look at our scriptures, Ramayana happened because Shurpanakha was rejected. Her advances were rejected by Ram and Lakshman for valid reasons. Poor Sita had to face rejection at the hands of her own husband later. In the Mahabharata, there is a character called Amba, who unfortunately has been rejected by so many people that she finally put a curse on Devavrat or Bhishma later as the person responsible for her misfortunes. Rejections happen to us. It is normal to feel dejected, disappointed, disillusioned. However, our scriptures tell us, and so many life stories tell us, that it is wonderful to have a rejection because it tells you where you are short. A rejection holds a mirror to your faces. And who better to talk about it than the person who has not only personal experiences but has done a great deal of thinking in the entire gamut of human psychology that deals with rejection and its counterpart, acceptance. Let me introduce to you our speaker of today, Dr. Ambi Parameswaran is the brand strategist and founder of brandbuilding.com. He brings with him impressive career spanning over 35 years, handling notable brands and assignments in marketing and sales, advertising with prominent agencies. He regularly contributes articles to business publications and conducts branding workshops for Indian as well as multinational companies and other industry bodies. He speaks at TEDx and the Kellogg India Summit at Northwestern University and Cornell University. He is an adjunct professor of marketing at SP Jain Institute of Management and Research and a guest faculty at IIM Calcutta, IIM Ahmedabad, MICA, Indian School of Business, among others. Having earned his PhD from Mumbai University, he has an MBA from IIM Calcutta and he has completed Advanced Management Program for Harvard Business School. Let us welcome Dr. Ambi Parameswaran and let's listen to him what he has to say. Over to you, Ambi.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Milind. Thank you for inviting me here. So let me just try sharing my very good morning to all the young students here attending this NorthCap Masterclass. I will take for about 40 minutes and then we can have Q&A. And thank you for the warm introduction. And of course, this has been shared with all of you. So let me start talking about spring and the idea of writing a book on rejection. Spring, those of you who've done physics know that it's a twisted piece of metal that can be pushed, pulled, twisted and turned, but it always bounces back to the original shape. So this spring is the name of the book which I published in October last year, called Bouncing Back from Rejection. Excuse me. So you may wonder, why am I writing a book on rejection? Am I a psychiatrist? Am I a psychologist? I'm none of that. In fact, the idea of this book itself came at a talk like this. I was giving at a university called Jagran Lake University in Bhopal. So I was doing a talk on my previous book called Sponge, which is on leadership lessons I learned from my clients. And in the talk lasted 40 minutes. And then at the end of the talk, there were question answers going on. There was a girl who had her hand up at the back of the hall. And finally, the mic reached her and she asked a question, almost in an accusatory way, saying, look, we are all young students here. We are very worried about getting rejected in a job interview or getting rejected in other things. So what do you know about rejection? And she also said that, you had great education, you've worked with real business leaders, which is all very nice. But our immediate concern is rejection. What do you know about rejection? Now, I think the tone was that, look, this guy is very successful. So he's probably not faced too much rejection. He has had it very easy right through his life. So I decided to give her a slightly long answer, almost 10 minutes, about my own rejection experiences, etc. And I don't know what happened. The entire auditorium of 500 students and professors stood up and gave me a standing ovation. I thought something was happening here. And then a month later, I was delivering a talk at IIM Calcutta, where I again narrated the same episode. And again, I got. So I realized that, maybe I need to write something about rejection. And I started reading books. I started reading articles on rejection, on resilience. I talked to people, experts. I talked to people from various fields of business. And I started writing this book almost 2.5 years ago. The book consists of a story, some stories from my own life, but there's got 60 plus stories from multiple domains, whether it is business leaders, entrepreneurs, authors, sports, Olympic athletes. The big myth which a lot of young people have, and I'm not saying only young people have, everyone has this, but the young people have it more, is that you tend to think that everyone who's successful today was successful from day one. That, Mr. Narayan Murthy went and started Infosys, it became a big success. Or Karsanbhai started Nirma, it became a huge success on day one. Nothing is a success. Nothing is an overnight success. An overnight success actually is a result of multiple rejections, multiple failures, and learning from these failures. So in the talk, I'm going to share some of my own stories, and I'm going to share some other stories from other people whom we really admire, people whom we think would have been successful right through their life, right? So I call this, and I group the stories as facing rejection, processing rejection, and learning from rejection. So I believe whatever rejection you may face, and it could be as students, you may come into NorthCap University, you may say, I want to be selected into the hockey team, I want to be part of the debating team. You may not get selected. That's one level of rejection. You may think you've done a great job with your project, but your professor says, no, you only deserve a C. Again, another form of rejection. So first lesson is that be positive. Whenever you do something, be positive about what you're doing, but be ready to face the rejection. So first is facing rejection. Second is, once you get hit by a rejection, learn to process the rejection and plan the way forward. So second stage is processing rejection. The third is learn. If, I think Einstein said this, only an insane man thinks he'll get different results if he does the same experiment twice, thrice, 4 times. If you do the same thing again and again and again without learning, you will get the same result. You're not going to get a different result. So you have to learn. That I think is the most important step. Learn from every rejection and learn to get better after every rejection. So let's start with a few stories on facing rejection. And let me start with my own little story. I was a BTech student at IIT Madras. I was in the final year those days. IIT was a 5-year BTech program. And in my final year, there were 3 options available for most of us. One was to go abroad to do a master's. The second was to join a company in India and work in engineering domain. And then the third was to go and do an MBA from one of the business schools. So I was in my final year, and I went to the, I decided not to go abroad. I'll stay in India. The 2 options were there. I'll do MBA, or I will do my take up a job. So I went to the placement cell. Those days, unlike now, even in the IIT, there was nothing like a big placement season with hundreds of companies coming and all that. Nothing like that was there. I'm talking of 1977, February, March. I found that there was a notice which said that Hindustan Lever, today you call it Hindustan Unilever, was coming. And about out of the batch of 50 or 30, 40 mechanical engineers, about 10, 12 of us applied for the job. The others were all planning to go abroad. So I wrote my bio, got my bio prepared, gave it to the placement office, and I was invited for the interview the next day. I went in and I was asked a question and I fumbled with that question. And I was literally, as they say, clean bowled in the first ball. I was a little disappointed. I said, yeah, everyone's interview is taking 30 minutes. My interview is over in 10 minutes. So obviously I've done very badly. So I went back to my room and I was wondering what was this question he asked. So I picked up my textbook and I started looking at the textbook and I found the answer in the textbook in the first 5 pages of textbook. I realized I was really badly prepared. So I deserved to be rejected. Fair enough. Then later I got another job, but I was lucky. I got into IIM Calcutta, so I went to IIM Cal. Now you cut to March of 1978. IIM Cal, I was a good student. In the first year, I came very near the top of my class. I knew all my subjects well, etc., etc. So again, Hindustan Lever was coming for summer internship, and again I applied for summer internship, right? And this time I was very well prepared, so I thought I will get the assignment, okay? But here I answered, out of the 30 students who applied, there were finally 2 who were shortlisted, and the last 2, me and another friend, were asked a trick question, and I gave a very, very logical answer, and I didn't get selected. So that's when I said, look, I've tried for this company twice. It's not working out, and then what should I do? I sat back and I started thinking, and I said, no, I want to spend the summer of 1978 in Kolkata. I want to get the flavor of Calcutta. So I'll spend time preferably with a company in Calcutta or do a project in Calcutta. And I found a notice of a relatively unknown advertising agency called Rediffusion. They wanted a summer trainee in Calcutta. So I joined them, and as luck would have it, I discovered advertising, the world of advertising. I discovered a whole bunch of very interesting people who work in advertising and what advertising does. So I used that rejection to discover a new direction to go in. In fact, in 1979, when the final placement started, I had been shortlisted by Hindustan Lever, and but Rediffusion met me just 2 days before, in fact, over in a pub, and we had a long chat. And then I was asked, would you like to join advertising? I said, look, are you offering me a job? He said, yes. I said, yeah, done, I'm joining. And I went back to campus and I said, look, I'm going to join Rediffusion. My friend who was a placement secretary said, no, you can't. You applied to Hindustan Lever. They're coming for an interview tomorrow. You have to appear for the interview. It'll be bad for the institute if you don't appear. I said, no, I've got a job here. So they said, where's the letter? I said, there's no letter. No, you got to get a letter. So finally, we managed to get a kind of a offer letter from Rediffusion, and Hindustan Lever was told that this guy is not going to appear for the interview. Apparently, they asked, because I was a good student. They asked, they said, no, you're not going to appear. So remember this. I was rejected twice by Hindustan Lever. I joined advertising, and I will tell you the second part of this Hindustan Lever story at the end of my talk. So remember, when you get rejected, you can keep trying again and again. It'll work. If you're convinced it'll work, and I'll tell you stories of how it'll work. But also, when you get rejected, you can look at a new direction. In this case, I got rejected twice, and I discovered a new direction, which is advertising, and I built my career in advertising, right? And let me now move to a completely different domain, right? Which is writing books. And I've written many books, and so let me talk about these books, right? These are very famous books, and if I were to ask you what is common across Jeffrey Archer's Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less, or Harry Potter's uh, Philosopher's Stone by J.K. Rowling, or Chicken Soup for the Soul uh, by Jack Cranfield, or Meluha, written by my friend Amish Tripathi. Now, many of you may have read some of these books, and I'm sure all of you have read Harry Potter. Some of you would have read Meluha, some of you would have read Jeffrey Archer. And if I ask you what is common across all these books, your standard answer would be they are all bestsellers, right? They have all sold millions of copies. But there is an underlying foundation which is true across all these four books. These four books were all rejected by multiple publishers. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 13 publishers. Jeffrey Archer was rejected by 17 publishers. Jack Cranfield by 200 publishers. Amish was rejected by so many publishers, he decided to publish the book, first book himself, using the help of his agent. So all of them have been rejected. But how do they keep at it? And I think Stephen King, who's written a whole lot of horror books, tells this in his book called On Writing. He was writing, he was living in a trailer park. Trailer park is like in a trailer, which means it's like a bus which is converted into a home. He was living in that pretty abject condition. He was teaching English at a nearby school, and he was trying to write a novel. And he used to send the documents, the manuscript, it'll come back saying rejected. Send it, come back rejected. So one day, sitting in the morning, he was writing for about an hour. He wrote for about 10 pages and from his typewriter, and then he took it out, read it, didn't like it, crumpled it, threw it in the waste basket, and went for a walk. When he came back, his wife had picked up those 10 pages and she read them. And then she said, "Look, Stephen, this is your book. Sit down and write it." He wrote it, and that became a book called Carrie, which became a phenomenal bestseller. So if you're in the creative arts, and I'm saying creative arts specifically, if you're in the creative arts, if you're convinced what you're doing is breakthrough, what you're doing is interesting, then you have to keep trying. But remember, you got to have someone behind you who keeps telling you that this is worth publishing. Okay, in the case of Amish, it was his agent, Bari. In the case of Stephen King, it was his wife who advised him, saying, yes, this is worth pursuing, don't give up. So remember, I'm giving you two very different stories. Both have important lessons embedded in them. So that is about facing rejection. Next is, let's go to, once you get hit by a rejection, how do you process it? Right? Processing it is a big problem. And all of us love Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. He is probably the most loved president this country has had for a long time, right? And you may think that he was a nuclear scientist, he was a rocket scientist, he was very successful, but the truth is he failed, and he failed pretty miserably. So let's listen to him.
1979, SLV-3 satellite launch vehicle. I was the project director, mission director. My mission is to put the satellite in the orbit. Thousands of people worked nearly 10 years. I reached the Sri-Harikota, and it's in the launch pad. Countdown was going on. T-minus 4 minutes, T-minus 5 minutes, T-minus 1 minute, T-minus 40 seconds. Computer put a hold. Don't launch it. Computer says don't launch it. I am the mission director. I have to take decision. Everything is on. Behind me, there are 6 experts. They saw computer database coming in at screen, and they see the pictures in the screen. They said there's a problem. The problem is there's a leakage in the system, in the control system. But immediately calculation, no problem. We have got sufficient fuel and oxidation for control system is control the rocket to the required altitude. And we can go ahead. Now, of course, my expert's view, but I took the decision. Problem is mine. Finally, I took a decision. I bypassed the computer. I launched the system. First stage work is a 4-stage rocket. and second stage got mad. It went to the spin. Instead of putting the satellite in the orbit, it put in the Bay of Bengal. 1979, it was a failure. It was a failure. First time I experienced my failure. How do you manage the failure? Success I can manage. So at that time, a great man, a great leader, also Satish Dhawan, he comes to me, I'm very tired working nearly for months. He wakes me up, come, let us go for a press conference. Press is meeting there, like this number of people, world press, with photo, this and that, all the gadgets, they are there. I was really frightened. I will be the culprit because I'm the project director, mission director. What Satish Dhawan said, Chairman, Indian Space Research Organization, said, dear friends, we have failed today. This is the first time I have to do all the success, all the failure is, I want to support my technologists and scientists and staff so that next year they succeed. So he took the whole blame himself. And then media asked, you put Bay of Bengal so many crores, you are putting like that, a lot of criticism. He received the criticism. He assured them in a year we will succeed with our team. It's a very good team. Next year, here only interesting happened. Next year, July 18, 1980, when he succeeded, Professor Dhawan said, you go and conduct the press conference. Do you follow what it means? It means when the failure occurred, the leader took it up. When the success came, he used his team. That's the first.
So the important thing, the lesson is that all of us will get hit by failure. You always have an inner critic which tells you you're going to fail, you're going to fail, you're going to fail. You got to be aware how to silence that inner critic. In the case of Dr. Kalam, he had a wonderful mentor called Satish Dhawan who took the blame on himself and allowed Dr. Kalam to sort out the problem. So remember, if you can find a mentor like that, and that mentor will help you overcome any kind of problem of this sort. So processing rejection.
1979.
Problem, right? Let me now come to a different domain. We looked at business, we looked at authors, we looked at scientists. Now we come to cricket. Now, all of us, and especially all of you, would have seen Rahul Dravid bat when you were children, right? In 1998, something happened to Rahul Dravid's career. Selectors dropped him from the one-day international team in 1998. Some of you really ardent cricket followers will know that. A few days after the news about him being dropped was in the papers, Geet Sethi, who's a world champion billiard player, was preparing for his world championship. He had to go to Hong Kong to play the tournament. So he was in Bangalore for a physical. So he was undergoing some physical training. And so in the morning, he went to that Kantivira stadium with his physical trainer early morning. He went there, and whom does he see? He sees Rahul Dravid. What is Rahul Dravid doing? He went and asked him. Rahul Dravid said, look, I need to improve my upper body muscles. So I've got a special trainer. So this trainer was throwing, 10 kilos of cement bags on Rahul Dravid, and Rahul Dravid was lying on the ground and picking that up and coming up. Right. So remember this. This guy has been dropped from the Indian cricket team just a few days before. What was he doing? He was not running to Calcutta or Bombay or Delhi crying, saying, look, why did you drop me? Why did you drop me? No, he was not giving press interviews, nothing. He said, I need to improve my game. I need to improve my physique. And he was back training, right? So Viren Resquina, whom I spent time with, understanding how does a world-class sports person take rejection. Viren Resquina has been the captain of the Indian hockey team. And believe you me, he was so thrilled with the Indian team's performance this year's Olympics that he was, he wrote articles and I congratulated him. He was very thrilled. Viren says that only in sport there is no permanent black mark if you get rejected or if you lose, right? You always have and he says that when he was training to become a hockey player, he was not being selected by the Maharashtra team, right? But he was getting selected by the under 18 Indian team for 3 years, right? And then finally he got into the Indian team and then played for Maharashtra, played for India. Uh, and he says that in sports, when you are getting dropped from a team, don't curse. Just practice even more. And I think this lesson applies to every walk of life. You may be working in a company tomorrow. You may want to work on a new exciting project and you may not be selected. When you don't get selected, it's easy for you to blame the other guy. You know, he's biased, he doesn't like boys, he doesn't like girls, whatever. But don't curse the boss, don't curse the team, right? Get back to become better. Improve your game. Okay, automatically you'll get selected. Look at what happened to Rahul Dravid. 1998, he was not selected in the one-day international team. 1999, he was selected to play for India in the one-day World Cup. And he turned out to be the highest scoring batsman in that tournament. Indian team's performance was not good, but his performance was outstanding. Okay, so that's the lesson from Rahul Dravid. Now let me come to a startup story. Saral Design is a company started by two young people. One is a BTech from IIT Bombay, another is a BTech from IIT Madras. Sohani Mohan is and Kartik Mehta. So Sohani was telling this interesting story. You know, some of us have helped her start the company, but she was trying to raise capital, and she went for 100 different presentations. Over a period of 1 year, she must have made 2 presentations to VCs every week. 100 VCs rejected her projects. And they kept asking her questions, asked her for new PowerPoint presentation, new spreadsheet, but no money was coming, right? So she was obviously wondering what to do. Obviously, she was doing something wrong. Fortunately, she got invited to speak at a conference in California. She gave a talk. At the end of the talk, a lady approached her and said, Sohani, sorry if I'm saying something you don't want to listen to, but your presentation is all wrong. So Sohani was ready to ask, so what was wrong? What was wrong with my presentation? You know, I'm very passionate about this. The company is an interesting company. It makes high quality sanitary pads, and it makes the machines which make these high quality sanitary pads, somewhat like what Muruganandam does, which has been captured in the movie called Padman. Sohani's machines and Karthik have designed the machine which actually makes very high quality pads. So, and it's very low cost. The machine itself is low cost, so, and the pads are very low cost. So this lady called her aside and said, look, you're not a regular startup. You are what we call an impact startup, which means you are going to impact society. You're going to impact girls. You're going to impact employment. You're going to impact manufacturing, right? You're an impact. So you change your pitch. Don't call yourself a regular startup. Call yourself an impact startup, and start talking to impact investing companies. There are a whole group of companies which invest in VCs who invest in companies which are into social sector. You know, sanitation, female hygiene, education, etc. So she changed the presentation, and remember, she made 100 presentations to VCs. She got 0 money, and then this new presentation she took to 10 impact investing VCs, and she ended up getting 4 checks. So look at the dramatic change. Important thing is she could have kept going at this without making any, without raising any capital. But fortunately, she found someone who gave her advice, and that worked out for her. Let me come to one of my own stories. So this year, 98, I think, yeah. So 97. India was opening up, new companies were coming into the country, and I was then running an agency called FCB Ulka Advertising. So we were invited by Hyundai, which was going to launch cars in India. So we all put together a presentation, and we went to Chennai to meet their marketing head. We made the presentation to him. You know, in advertising, you have to make, they call 4 or 5 agencies. they listen to their ideas, and then they pick one agency to work with. That's how the whole business works. So we made a presentation, and when we walked out of the room, I said, look, this presentation didn't go well. So my team said, no, I think we had done a good job. I said, no, I don't think we managed to convince them. I don't think we'll get this business. Right? This is not going to, it's not going to work. The team said, okay, they were disappointed. I said, look, let's go back and think. So we went back to Bombay and we said, look, what did we do wrong? And what do we need to do now? So we realized that, car business is going to become very big in India. Till around 91, 92, India had only two cars, right? Ambassador and Premier Padmini. And that was all going to dramatically change. Ford Escort had come, and I think Opel Astra had come, and then there were new companies coming in. And we said, look, we don't know enough about cars. We don't know enough about car marketing. We know enough about car buyer behavior. Let's start immersing ourselves in trying to understand that. So we spent time understanding that. We also talked to our global partners to see if we could get some learnings from there. And we said there will be other car companies coming, right? Like, remember what Einstein said? If you do the same thing and expect different results, you're a madman. So we said we can't do the same thing. So we significantly changed our game, learned a lot more, and we then learned that Tatas were showing off their new car, small car, at the Auto Expo, and we met them after that. We said, look, we'd like to work with you. We are doing a students case study competition. We'd like you to help us put together a case. They said we can't give you anything confidential. So no problem, but we want you to come for the judging. So they agreed to give us the non-confidential data. We put together a case, students presented, the head of marketing came for the final evaluation. At the end, the next day he called me and he said, look, would you be interested in pitching for our business? I said, yes, what I was waiting to hear. So I said, yes, of course, sir, we will. So 15 agencies were called for the presentation and we came out on top. And believe you me, we wouldn't have come out on top if we had not processed that rejection from Hyundai the right way. The truth is, the agency which got the Hyundai business did well, but they got to handle Hyundai only for about 7-8 years. After that, Hyundai brought their own Korean agency into India. But our agency, FC Bulka, we got the Tata Motors business in 1998, and till date, they are handling that business. So in a sense, that rejection turned out to be a boost for us to get a bigger piece of business. So let me play one ad.
When I saw you standing there, about fell out my chair. And when you moved your mouth to speak, I felt the blood go to my feet.
Nice car.
Baby, I love you to want me, the way that I want you, the way that it should be. Baby, I love you to want me, the way that I want you, the way that it should be. Baby, you love me to want you, the way that I want you.
Hello, excuse me. Can you give me a lift?
Tata Indica, more dreams spoken.
So remember, after every rejection, process the rejection, play back what went wrong and what you can do better. Now that brings us to the last part of today's talk, which is learning from. We saw facing rejection is important, processing rejection important, but the most important thing in my mind is learning from rejection. Every rejection holds valuable lessons. And if you're not learning from the rejection, you're missing out on something very, very valuable. And if you talk to professors and you're in a top class university and all the professors here, what they will tell you that to become a tenured professor, you have to write articles, you have to do research, and you have to write articles in top class journals. All top class journals do not publish whatever you send them. They have this concept called peer review, which means they will hide your name and send that article to 3 or 4 other people of eminence to review that article. And those 3, 4 people can reject your article or they can accept your article, right? If they accept your article, they'll say, yes, this is an interesting article, but they have to give some explanation why they accept it. It could be a 2-line, 3-line thing saying it's interesting. But when they reject the article, most journals request them to give a detailed analysis. Why are you rejecting? What is wrong with this research? Is the research topic wrong? Is the research methodology wrong? Is the research analysis wrong? Or have the researchers made a wrong assumption? So when you get reject, when you even get, when you send an article to academic journal, it gets published, you're happy. But the truth is, even when you get rejected, there could be a lot of useful information in the rejection letter for you to read and interpret and make your research that much better. So I was talking to someone who's a professor of computer science, and he was saying that he has got 20 papers published in top conferences in the last 4 years. Very good average, right? Out of that 20 papers, 13 papers were accepted first shot. He sends it, they get accepted. But when he did an analysis, he found that out of the papers which got rejected, which is the 7 papers got rejected, in fact, those papers turned out to be papers which became best paper award winners or top of class award winners, because every time he gets a rejection, he reworks a research, redoes that research, and he submits it to the next conference. He says, earlier, I used to be very, very disappointed when I got rejected. Now, when I get rejected, I read the rejection memos carefully. And I know there'll be ideas there for me to make my research better. So similarly, when you get rejected, remember, can you find something in that to make your project better, right? Make your research better. And that's what the academics have learned over many, many years. So the other important thing is that, rejection is bad. All of us, get very disappointed, get rejected. But remember, if you've not faced rejection, you've not tried to fly high enough. Rejection is an indication that you're stepping beyond your comfort zone. You're stepping beyond your natural limit. And in fact, a life with no rejection is a very boring life. So remember, rejection is an indication that you're pushing the boundaries. You're moving beyond what people think you can do. And that is not a bad thing in itself. Okay. So let me tell another story from my career. I joined an agency called Ulka. We became FCB Ulka. I was in Chennai. I moved to Bombay in 1994. And I was told I got to handle this client called Wipro Consumer Products, and they had a brand called Santur. The problem was the agency had done some work, the brand had done well, but 2 years the brand sales had started stagnating. I had to find a way out because the agency had an idea, and then they had a series of scripts which had worked well, but those scripts have stopped working now. The client said that the idea itself needs to be relooked. Maybe the idea needs to be thrown out, and you need to completely relook. And then the agency had been struggling for 6 months to get to the new idea and to get to a new execution. But the agency felt the idea was good, but the execution was wrong. The idea was that every woman would like to look young and be mistaken for someone younger. And the script idea was always the lady gets mistaken for a young girl, and there is a little kid who comes and says, "Mommy." So 3, 4 scripts had been done, worked, and then they stopped working. The client said, "No, this whole younger looking skin itself is useless. You drop it, change something." Agency was saying, "No, younger looking skin is okay." So I had to find a via media, right? And therefore, I convinced the client that, look, the idea, I think, has legs. You're not happy with the script you have written. We'll give you an alternative script. Let's look at both the scripts. Let's do both the films, and let's see what happens. Fortunately for me, this idea of mine to reframe the problem clicked with the client. He said, "Okay, give me 2 scripts. One which is more traditional one, which is what you've done, and let's see what happens. So finally, the so-called somewhat unconventional script we presented ended up becoming a film, which turned out to be a big. Let me play that film and tell you what happened.
कितनी खूबसूरत है पहले कभी नहीं देखा इसे एक्सक्यूज मी कौन से कॉलेज में हो कॉलेज और मैं मामी इसकी त्वचा से तो उम्र का पता ही नहीं चलता चंदन और हल्दी के गुण समाये संतूर त्वचा कुछ और निखारे संतूर 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 संतूर.
So some of you from South India will know this is a very big brand, but you know that time, 1998, Santoor was probably 1/10 the size of Lux soap, which is from Hindustan Unilever. And so this was a breakthrough ad. This ad actually, the client was very uncomfortable, but finally when we made the ad and they tested it, it turned out to do very well. And then after this, I must have made myself 20 different ads for Santoor over the years. I worked on the brand from 98 till I got out of advertising in 2015, 2016. The interesting story is that we have stayed with the same theme, younger looking skin, mistaken identity, the mummy format has stayed the same, but the story has kept changing. She's become a photographer, she's become a choreographer, she's become an aerobics instructor, etc., right through the life. The Santoor woman has kept changing, just like the Indian woman has kept changing. The interesting side plot is that when I started working on Santoor in 98, Santoor was almost 1/10 the size of Lux. In the year 2018, Santoor became bigger than Lux. So remember the funny thing here is that I got rejected by Hindustan Lever twice. I ended up entering advertising, ended up working on a brand for a company called Wipro, ended up building the brand which overtook a very large respected Unilever brand. So in some sense, it's all, providence. I ended up working on Wipro. Wipro, of course, became a very big IT major. I played some small role in helping them make a success out of Santoor, which probably funded some part of the Wipro's IT efforts. Santoor is a phenomenal brand. It's a very big brand in South India. It's a #1 brand in Andhra, #1 brand in Maharashtra. I think the #2 brand in Kerala, #1 brand in Karnataka. Among the top 2-3 brands in Gujarat, but nationally they are #2 brand, right? They're second only to Lifebuoy, and my suspicion is if they keep growing this way, they'll probably become bigger than Lifebuoy. Of course, they're not very big in Gurgaon, they're not very big in North India, but that's beside the story. But the fact is, it all started with a rejection. The client said, no, we don't want this idea. But finally, by reframing it, I managed to convince them to run the ad, and it turned out to be a success. Okay, so remember, develop your internal spring. What do I mean by that? Don't worry about being rejected or don't worry about failure, right? There are phenomenal opportunities facing all of you. All of you are 17, 18, 19 years old. There are phenomenal opportunities facing every single one of you, right? Be ready to take risks. When you take risks, you will get rejected. So see the positive of every challenge. Find out what you can learn from every rejection, right? Build your own rejection processing system. Rejection processing system could be a boss. Like, Dr. Kalam had Satish Dhawan as a boss who was his rejection processing system. Stephen King, the author, had his wife who was a rejection processing system. Who's your rejection processing system? Do you have a friend? It could be your parents. It could be a cousin. It could be a brother. It could be a professor. Find someone whom you can talk to when you're being hit by a rejection. Bring energy, excitement, enthusiasm, all you do. Do all the projects you have to do with full energy, full confidence you will succeed, right? Don't go there half-heartedly, okay? But be ready to face rejection, be ready to face failure. And let me play this little clip by Harsha Bogle, which is from his book, Winning Habit. Remember talent is only half the battle, right? Attitude is more important than talent. Let's hear what Harsha has to say.
That. And yet you find that excellence is not about talent alone. In fact, a major part of excellence has nothing to do with talent. And in course of time, once you go beyond a certain level, ability or talent is the most useless virtue to possess. It's what you do with that talent that matters. And that's why he used a word, Mukesh used a word that I love, attitude. Beyond a point, it is attitude that counts for far more than talent. Because talent breeds an ego. And talent never solves problems beyond a point. And I was fascinated by something that Sandy Gordon said when we were doing a program together. Because I had seen a lot of young cricketers, extremely talented, who the moment they faced a roadblock did not know what to do. Because they had never had to struggle to succeed. They always used their talent to succeed. And Vinod Kambli is an example of that. The moment Courtney Walsh bounced him in Bombay, he was 22 years old. Was he? Yeah, he was 22 years old then. In 1994, he was 22 years old. Didn't know what to do, did not play a test match after that. His last test match was when he was 22 years old. Just did not know how to play the bouncing ball because talent had solved everything for him before. In the Australian Army, when they are, and this is something that doesn't come from sport, but it's something a sports scientist told me, that when they're building an elite core team, they look at your career record, your track record. And if you've never failed, they don't pick you. They don't pick you because they say, if this man experiences failure, will he know what to do? They pick people who failed and bounced back. And that is where your attitude comes through. That your work ethic and your attitude counts from far more than talent. I mean, Tendulkar is a prime example. He played 55 games as a 14-year-old without a break. 55 days. He'd practice for 2 hours, play a game, practice 2 hours, fall asleep on the dining table. And do that 55 days in a row. That's attitude. It isn't Tendulkar's talent that's produced 70 hundreds. It's his work ethic, it's his attitude, and more than anything else, when you reach the top, it's his passion to perform. And that counts for far more. The attitude and the passion counts for far more than ability. Ability opens the first door. It might open the second door. It's not going to open the last door. Yeah.
So remember, how do you face rejection? I think in my book, I've shared 60 plus stories, 100 personalities. It's about facing, processing, and learning. If you have that formula, you can face any rejection, you can face any challenge, you can face any failure. As you know, Nelson Mandela has said, do not judge me by my successes, judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again. So let me just end by blowing my own trumpet a little bit. This is the book which is available. Those of you who have a Kindle Unlimited account can get this book for free from Amazon. And of course, this is one of my 10 books, including there are 2 small books called Brand and Negotiation Magic. All of you will find these are easy to read. These are not heavy duty books. These are easy to read books. In fact, my book, Nawab News Noodles on advertising, 50 years of Indian advertising, was rated as one of the 6 books to read during the lockdown by Harish Bhatt of Tata Sons. Okay, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn and on Twitter as Ambi MGP.
Thank you very much, Ambi, for a fascinating talk. I know you have a hard stop at 10. You have another meeting to go to. So we will open this session for questions. I have one question before students take precedence. In the life of a young 18-year-old, rejection usually means relationship rejection. You know, rejected by your girlfriend or boyfriend, which is very different from corporate rejection. Do they have the same process to go through, face, process and learn, or is there something more to than that? And that's the only question I'll ask.
I don't know. Actually, I'm not a psychiatrist to opine on this, but whatever books I've read and articles I've read, the fundamentals of facing, processing, and learning doesn't change, whether it is a personal rejection or it is a professional rejection. I think the fundamentals pretty much are same. But like I say, you know, I'm not a counselor. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist to advise on that. But I suppose the same fundamentals will work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. You gave a real insight to the rejection as quoted by Mark Emmond as well. That rejection doesn't mean that you are not good enough. It means that other person failed to notice what you have to offer. And there is no harm in getting rejected also because it is merely a redirection. So we have invited certain questions also. Meanwhile, I've received one question from one of the students. He said that research finds that social media can negatively impact our self-esteem and damage our well-being also. And the youngsters consider it as rejection when they do not get lots of likes on their post, not getting followed back, and not having a mass following. So, how to cope up with this? Because we consider it as the starting of the rejection.
Well, I think I understand that today all these youngsters live on social media platforms and they take all these rejections a little too seriously. I think if I were to say something, I think you need to take it easy. It's not easy to build a followership of 1 million or 100,000 or even 1,000. So you got to take it easy. Just because you follow someone, it doesn't mean he has to follow you. Again, take it easy. I'm saying, say take the chill pill. Don't worry too much about this entire social media obsession. Don't worry too much. It's all that I can say. Uh, and remember, nothing is built in a day. If you want to build a social media platform where you're going to post videos, you're not going to become an overnight success. No one becomes an overnight success. Right? It doesn't happen that way. Right? So be at it. I think the same advice will work, which is learn to face it, learn to process it. If at all, take advice from people and try and improve your story. And then learn from every time you get rejected and learn to become a little bit better.
Yeah, thank you so much. One of the students is asking that is rejection and failure both the same thing or they are different?
I think they're similar. Okay. Rejection is very clearly someone is rejecting you. An interviewer is rejecting you. Let's say the captain is rejecting you. Failure could be something which is absolute. So rejection is a lot qualitative. Failure could be, getting the pass mark and, failure mark. So that is somewhat more hardwired. Rejection is much more softer. But both are similar. I don't want to nitpick here. Both are very similar. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So when we read some philosophical books and learn from them, then how do we know that what we actually have to apply in our life?
Keep reading more and more. You don't need to, for example, read my book and start applying it tomorrow. Even if you get one good idea from there, that is worth it for you. So it is not as if you should read my book or read a very good book by Angela Duckworth called Grit and say, I'll start applying it. No. All of us, what we are trying to do is to give you a process for processing, a way of processing failures and rejection, right? Something will be applicable to you, something may be applicable to some other friend. You may pick up a lesson which you think, I didn't realize it. So I've given something at the end of my book, which is to think back. Put down 3 or 4 rejections you faced in the last 2-3 years. How did you handle it? Now, look at what has been suggested in the book. How will you handle it now? If you were to go back, I'm saying even I was not perfect. One of the things we started in our agency didn't do well. Thinking back, now I feel that maybe I should have continued. I gave up too early. I should have continued for another 2 years. We were setting up setting up a outsourcing center in India to service US clients. I made one trip to the US, met 4 or 5 clients, picked up one piece of business, but it turned out to be not very profitable. So we shut the business down the next year. I said, look, maybe I should have made 2 trips a year and met 20 clients. And maybe I would have succeeded. Maybe I'd have found someone like Suhani found someone to give advice saying, hey, focus on this sector. I didn't do that. I gave up too early. Of course, this story is about 15 years old. Thinking back, if I were to say, yeah, that was a place where I failed. I was rejected, I failed. What did I do wrong? And today, if I were to do it, I will do it differently. So do that exercise and you'll realize what you could do better.
Yeah, thank you so much. Jatin is asking, you must have got the rejection for your book also. So how many times it was rejected for getting published?
Okay, interesting. Thank you for that question. The idea for writing the book was given to me by a friend of mine who was a professor at Penn State. So I was teaching in some business schools and I told him, we are not able to get these Harvard cases. They're very expensive. I'm talking of, 97, 98. And so I said, I've written some cases myself about some of the brands I work on, and I use it for my classes. So he said, why don't you publish it as a book? So I said, yeah, I don't know, that'll be good enough. He said, no, why don't you write 5 of those cases? And he suggested a particular book called Breakthrough. I have it lying around somewhere. Somewhere up there. And he said, go through that book and, Breakthrough. This is the book he suggested. It's here. By Raghunath Naik, and you write a book like that. So I wrote 5 chapters of 5 cases and I sent it to him. And he said, I'm going to send it to a professor who's a big authority on marketing communication. I will get his feedback. So 4 weeks later, I get feedback from my friend saying that I'm sorry, Professor so-and-so has this to say about your cases. And it was very negative. He said, look, these cases look like promotion pieces for the agency. I wonder whether any publisher will even publish this as a book. I wish you all the best. Right? This is as good as a door being slammed on your face. So my friend was very disappointed. He said, yeah, I'm sorry. My other friend, the professor, has said that this is not worth it. I'm sorry I made you wait. I said, no, you gave me an idea. I'm going to follow this through. And so I wrote, I sent those 5 cases to an Indian publisher, Tata McGraw-Hill. And they said, look, we are looking for people to write about Indian brands. We will publish it. Write 15 cases. So I wrote 15 cases. I struggled. I wrote. Book got published. It was the first book which came out 20 years ago called FCB Ulka Brand Building Advertising Cases and Concepts. Once the first book got out, second, third, fourth happened. So in a sense, I got rejected by a professor saying, this is not worth publishing. But I felt, no, I will give it a shot. And fortunately for me, it worked out okay.
Thank you so much. The student is asking, can we call rejection as emotional motivation?
You can. I mean, the moment you start seeing rejection as something positive, you're halfway there. You should not see rejection as the end of the road. Right? See rejection as a milestone. You tried something, it didn't work, you got rejected, that's okay.
Though you have covered it, still one of the students is asking, what is your first biggest rejection and how did you cope up with that?
I've written about it. I mean, one of my biggest rejection was being rejected in a job interview. I thought I'll get that job, 100%. I was topping the class. I got rejected. I got very disappointed. I got rejected. But then, it worked out okay. So, today you get very obsessed saying, I want to join this company. I want to join this company. I want to do this role. A lot of times that may be all wrong. It may not work out, which is fine.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. And I thank you so much, students as well. And I would like to request Professor Milind for the concluding remarks.
Thank you, Professor Divyabha. I will be very brief because I know we are already short past the 10 o'clock mark. Ambi, like a true advertisement man, makes it sound so simple. Some of these big ideas are stated so simply, and that's the mark of an advertising person. Thank you very much, Ambi, for sharing your time and thoughts with us. And I'm pretty sure our students have taken wonderful insights away from this, as indeed all of us have. And we hope to see you again in the university when all things becomes normal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation and thank you for the active participation. Thanks.
Thank you.